So when you encounter somebody who says, Gary, I just think it's myth. And most of the time, the prompt for that is the supernatural. Maybe you want to talk a little about supernatural and historiography or history or, recording of history, ancient history, or just how you kind of move around. One of the ways you say is, well, where are you going? For me, the mythicist claim at the extreme end is Jesus didn't exist. At the mild end, it's like, well, maybe there's some history mixed in with some mythology and exaggeration.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll be willing to do either one of those, either the earliness or the worldview type questions on the other side. But I will tell you this: your lead question, that's another view that has changed significantly in the last 20 years. When I did this article in 2005 for the Journal for the Study of the Historical Jesus, I said that by far scholars, left, right, center, scholars believe that Paul is the major source to go to. They'll take Paul over the Gospels. These are critics.
Yes.
They'll take Paul over the Gospels.
Right.
And they think 1 Corinthians 15.
Right.
I said this back in 05.
Right.
That they think 1 Corinthians 15 is that the majority believe that Paul received that material no later than 35 to 36 AD. And we have the years on that. They can figure out the data. They can count the years. We can do the math. That Paul got that material at no later than 35 to 36. And so it's extremely early. It's what they call pre-Pauline. The Jesus Seminar, of all people, claim that 1 Corinthians 15, 3 and following, it was around before Paul's conversion. Okay, wow. Well, things have gotten tighter since then. And James D.G. Dunn, sorry to say, just passed away recently, but Jimmy Dunn, as he went by, he wrote in his book, Remembering Jesus, that the earliest creed in 1 Corinthians 15 may have come about in the same year in which Jesus was crucified.
Right.
Now, he doesn't say it just like I said it, but what he says is it could have come about months later. Well, we know Jesus was crucified in the spring, so you've got 3/4 of a year for that to happen in the first year.
Wow.
He puts it in the first year. Other people put it in the first year. He's not the only one. But Bart Ehrman, and I hope people realize most of the people we're citing are unbelievers and skeptics. So they're not going to. They shouldn't be able to walk away and go, "Well, yeah, you evangelicals are crazy. Are you this, this or that?" No, we're citing your people.
Absolutely.
And Bart Ehrman, who's the best-known skeptic, he depends on what issue you're talking about, but he calls himself either an atheist or an agnostic.
Right.
He dates the early creeds, of which there are dozens in the New Testament. He dates the early creeds and Acts sermon summaries. He dates a number of them to 1 to 2 years after the cross. So here's Jimmy Dunn.
Yeah.
Probably the same year.
Yeah.
Here's Walter Kasper, German theologian, the same year, 30 AD. And here's the arch critic.
The Pope of, exactly.
He's a nice guy.
Great nice guy. And funny. And
he is. He's funny. He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
He dates a lot of these 1 to 2 years later. So what I'm saying is, when I wrote this article in 05, 06, I said it's pretty much consensus that everybody puts it no later than 5 to 6 years after the cross. Yeah. Now you can say some works have actually come out saying that the consensus is moved back from 5 to 6 years. Now, just so the listeners know, I do not think it's true that early date stops legend theories. It doesn't.
Okay.
Here's how long it takes to stop a legend theory. I go, what'd you say, Joe? And I repeat something to my wife, and Joe's going, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. But I just spread a legend in 30 seconds. I mean, I can spread a false tale. It's not that.
Yeah.
But here's the key. If we can get the appearances of Jesus back to Jimmy Dunn the same year, to 1 to 2 years later, Bart Ehrman, what that means is the earliest church, as Larry Hurtado says, the early church was shot out of a cannon. I love this phrase. There are a lot of theologians now who are saying the earliest Christology was the highest Christology. A lot of people believed it took till John, 60 years later, to get the highest Christology. And they're saying now, no, we can argue this. These are critical scholars, that the highest Christology was shot out of the gate. Why was it shot out of the gate in 30 AD? because once they saw Jesus raised, it made them realize, whoa, I know who he said he was, but now I know it. Because if he was raised from the dead, dead men don't do much.
Right.
He always said his father was going to do it. Who else could have done it?
Right.
Oh, no, he must be who he claimed to be. And so that's why that early date is so important.
Right.
If it comes out of the gate believing in the appearances, which is pretty much the accepted view now.
Right.
In fact, a couple of major writers, Richard Bauckham, a couple of major writers have said that is the consensus view now, that resurrection and deity are shot out of the gate in 30 AD.
Man.
So even if somebody said, yeah, but you said yourself, earliness doesn't stop legends. You're right, it doesn't. But here's the point. The New Testament language was the language of sight. And I think this is as good a refutation as any of them against the legend views. The early teaching was, you're missing my point. I didn't say I believed he was raised. I believe that, but I'm not saying I believed he was raised only. I'm saying I saw him. And someone goes, oh, you got that from Hercules, right? They're going, no. Time out. I don't care. I don't know about Hercules. I don't care about Hercules. You're missing my point. Yeah. I walked and talked with him after he was crucified. That's the refutation. That's right. Probably the key refutations in my mind
right.
of legend theory. Yes. Is that in the New Testament, as critics admit right and left, the language is the language. Like when Paul says, I'm not an apostle, have I not seen the Lord, 1 Corinthians 9:1. As Tom Wright points out, that is a normal Greek word for normal sight. Yeah, I saw you at the store yesterday. It's the normal Greek word for sight. They're not saying, I heard that story, and I think that applies to Jesus. They're saying, I saw him buying a loaf of bread in the supermarket after he was crucified. A mundane claim that I saw him again. You know, he's walking here, he's there, he's eating, he's all these stories. He's doing normal things. But the thing is, now critics have come along with it. And the critic, sorry for going off, Joe. I've got so much to talk about here. I could just talk.
I love it. No.
Material.
You keep going. Let me ask you this, and you tell me what you think about this statement. Is this as monumental, given what we've seen and studied? You think history of religion school, that German stream of scholarship leading the way worldwide in Jesus studies, all the quests, regardless of what you think of them, this is monumental to have an early, even if you think about how the university has tended to present Jesus, this kind of legendary accretion over the years. And it started as he was just an interesting preacher, and then they just added stories and added stories. So therefore you get all this commentary about how canonization questions, these other gospels, and there's a bunch of different competing views to fit that model. But if you're having the skeptics, the arch skeptics, conceding a very early date for incarnation and resurrection, that is a seismic shift. They say,
the early date compounded with the language of sight.
Yes.
I saw him. Yeah, I know. You think Hercules. No. Get me right. I'm saying I saw the man. We went fishing together. I had a loaf of bread with him. I saw him. Yeah. And by the way, the school of thought, you were 19th century Religionsgeschichte, the history of religion school, mostly from about the late 1880s till about 1920. That school, they're major guys. They're major people. Bousset, Fleederer.
Yes.
They're major people also said, we think there's mythology here, but it doesn't explain the resurrection. And way back in 1905, Fleederer said, that one of the German leaders, Fleederer said, no matter how much mythology there is, the disciples said they saw him.
Incredible.
That's it. They saw him. Well, I thought you said that was a new Greek thing. Well, no, they're realizing it right now. But Fleederer said that that's what the New Testament says, and you got to make up for sight language. He said it in 1905.
Wow. Unreal.
And Bousset, another one is Trelch.
Yes.
Trelch makes the comment, who's also roughly in that group. Trelch said that the closer you look at the appearances, the closer they look like something's going on there. Which, by the way, Helmut Kirster, the student of Bolon, and he says that. By the way, Kirster's well known for saying one of the only two guys that both Cook and Mettinger agree on is is Osiris.
Yeah. Yep.
But the many
Egyptian
problems
god,
with Osiris, it's Kirster, the skeptic, the arch skeptic, who says, and this is pretty close to a quote, he said, it's good to keep in mind that the texts never say that Osiris rose from the dead. That's Kirster. Critics versus critics. And they say, you're barking up the, they're going to say, look, if you're going to pick a naturalistic theory, do a better job than this one.
That's it. That's it. They scold and wag their fingers at this. And there's so many, it's a death by qualification, so many qualifications. I was having to honestly pump the argument up in my dissertation so I didn't look like Don Quixote, charging a windmill here. I mean, I kept trying to pump the argument and, just move back to, punt to method.